Well, this has been a very tough year for many.
Thanks.
Lockdown, life devastated, economies shaken, brought a lot of questions to human minds. Mm-hmm. People are searching, they're searching to discover the answers to some of the most profound questions of human existence. So, I'd like to ask you, how did you spend this period? What was on your mind?
Yeah, good question. So part of the time was spent on my studies, catching up, doing the reading, trying to get a start on the next lot of reading. But part of that has also been thinking about what do we do, partly through the pandemic, but also what do we do when we come to the other side of it, whenever that will be. What will church look like? What will mission look like? What is the ministry drive? And this overwhelming sense that from the people around me, some wanting to rush back to whatever it was before because that felt safe, that felt like, let's just do that again. And then others saying, let's not do that again. Let's rethink a little bit. Let's try and reframe our story, and if possible, let's retell it in a new context, in a different way. One of the things I read while in the pandemic, on lockdown and furlough and all the things that happened to us, was a statement that said, in previous times, change happened over a generation. So you had like 30, 40 years for society to navigate change. But recently that's been speeding up. And so even pre-pandemic, with the same sort of change that happened in a generation was happening in 18 months. And I strongly suspect that what's happened over the pandemic is that we've probably even compressed that. So the shifts in our society have been considerable. And I think we all sense that, we experience it.
And this change often can leave many people confused because they don't know they don't have the framework for this. This is a new thing for most of us. And this month you'll also be thinking about, I think, what we had a conversation before is that there are ways of helping people have the framework to manage this change, to find their unique place in the new normal, so to say. And what would you think that would be needed for this period? What kind of guided process or kind of framework that people need to survive this change?
You know, Matt, often we have some of the skills. It's not a case of learning something completely new from scratch, but often it's about taking what you have, reconfiguring it, sometimes being asked questions you haven't been asked before, or having to think through things in conversation with other people, just like we do. The value of conversation is that you get a perspective, you hear something in a way you've not heard it before, and you go away thinking, gosh, that changes something, that shifts me in some way. And that's the value of community. We can all think on our own, but there's not many new conversation partners in my head. I need to have conversation partners in real life to kind of help me bring and navigate and synthesize all of these different things.
Yes. Well, I'm also excited about the new module that you're introducing next month in July. If you can tell us, how did you name this course? What it is about? Why do you think it's needed?
So the module is called Through a Glass Darkly, a reference, of course, to Paul's comment. You know, now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. And so the second part of the title picks up on that face to face with ourselves, with others, and with God. So it's trying to look at a missional lens or a missional triangle, if you like, with God, ourselves, and others, and how those three stories interact, converge, and really, in mission, it's a confluence of three stories.
So after the people engage in your mini online course, what do you think will be the benefits they will have from it?
One, I think the opportunity to just take a little time to think and reflect. I tend to be a bit of a reflective person, so I assume everybody else wants to do that. But I realize not everybody wants to do that. And maybe it's helpful to have somebody journey with you as you do that, and also not to be doing it on your own. So you're reflecting with someone to guide, but also others who are conversation partners reflecting with you. You're hearing their perspectives, putting them alongside your own. You have an opportunity to test ideas, to learn a little about yourself through inventories, through other self-discovery exercises, but also then to go with that and be learning what about others. And we can do that through film, we can do that through conversation outside of our group, and you'll be encouraged to take somebody out for coffee or for a meal or whatever is appropriate in your context, just to practice some of the listening skills. Not only listening to the words that are coming from another person or their story, but also be listening to hear what are the things about God's story that are coming through in this conversation. So you're listening not only with physical ears, but you're listening also with spiritual ears, trying to attune yourself to what God is doing.
So why do you think this course is special? There are so many courses on leadership and on mission and ministry. What's so unique about this course?
You know, I don't like to to talk about what I tend to be quite low key about my own stuff. So you put me on a spot when you ask me questions like that. But maybe what I can freely and honestly say is, anybody who's worked with me and you conversed with me for quite some time, you have a sense that I'm not about neat and tidy solutions. The sense that there's an organicness, there's a growth process, and there are things that develop over time. And sometimes it takes time to understand something, to see something more clearly. And instead of trying to get your arms around it and hold it tight right from the beginning and struggling with that, why not be a little more tentative as we all move into a new normal, a new experience, a new way of thinking about not just our lives, but what is the depth, what is the extent, what's the breadth of our spiritual experience, our walk with God, and really asking some questions about what God is doing around us.
I remember from some of your previous projects in Rome and in England, when you brought the whole group together on a journey, you talked about the idea that before you offer people a different explanation, first offer them a new fresh experience.
Yeah.
Will this course incorporate this principle also? Is this like a lecture type, or is it like, are you taking them somewhere, or how is it going to look like?
So, I don't like silver bullets. I don't like things that proclaim to give you an answer for all time and all people and in all places, because I'm really not sure something like that exists. But what we can do is discover, rediscover, and journeying together, so that we kind of use that language of journeying. Is there a broad destination that we're moving towards? Of course. The point of this time that we're together is to get you started on the journey, to equip you with some tools, to give you conversation partners, to give you a kind of a relatively safe context in which to kind of talk about things, engage with it, be surprised, learn some things maybe about yourself, about others, be confronted even, but to engage with it as a journey. The one thing we kind of try to teach our children is that the holiday begins when we leave home, not when we get to the destination. And it's kind of that idea that there's this journey that we go on. It's not about the destination at the end when everything will be wonderful and it'll be all sweetness and light. But there is actually, as Michael Card says, there's joy in the journey.
Yes. I have actually two remaining questions. One would be, how will this journey look like? How long is it going to last, and when is it going to happen, and then who is it for?
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to do it online to make it as accessible for everybody. We still haven't quite come out of all of our lockdowns in the UK, and it's possible that, well, who knows what's going to happen. We're all waiting with our fingers crossed. So online seems the most accessible. So we're going to do it by Zoom. I know everybody's zoomed out, but if we can kind of keep that interactive, engaged with people we're learning to get to know, 90 minutes of interactive time in groups, together, in conversation, not so much lecture-based, although there will be elements of teaching, of course. There'll be assignments to do, films to watch, inventories to take, coffee to drink. And if you don't drink coffee, I'm sure you can drink something that's appropriate for your context. Who should come on this journey? Well, I guess anybody who's asking questions as we come out of this worldwide pandemic about what church, what faith looks like lived out in their local context. So many people have commuted to church for so long and forgotten a little bit about where they live. And in the last year, we've all had an opportunity to be more rooted in place. So anybody who's wanting to think differently about how they engage mission, and ministry in the new normal is welcome. You might be a church planter, you might be a theology student, you might be a church elder, you might be a pastor, anybody really, who wants to discover, rediscover, and think afresh about what God is doing, not just broadly and generally in the world, but what God is doing in their local context. I'm not the expert on your context, but I can help you, equip you to go on that local journey.
Well, I must say, you convinced me. I would like to be part of this community-based journey.
Well, you're in my context. Yeah? We can journey together.
Yes, and looking forward to seeing other people also join us on this discovery of our place in a new normal.